So today we will be making beans and cornbread. This is a classic Southern meal. The first thing we will do is look our beans. This is something that you need to do. Sometimes little pieces of gravel or different things will get packaged along with the dry beans. And so what you need to do is go ahead and spread them out and just look the beans. That term kind of tickles some people. My mom had a friend who moved in from a different part of the country. She called one day and asked my mom what she was doing, and my mom said, "Oh, I'm just looking the beans." And she had no clue what my mom was talking about. But this is it. You just look through, and not only do I pick out maybe the little rocks, but the beans that don't look so good. Now, we didn't find any rocks today, but we did find some less than desirable dry beans. As you see, they're just ugly, and I don't like to have those in there because they can ruin a pot of beans. So I'm going to be cooking a pound of beans today. This is, of course, you can make more, but this is plenty for my family of 3. And I usually will make a meal with this and also freeze those little Ziploc containers or those Glad containers. Freeze a couple of portions of those for later recipes. So you just put these in your colander. We're going to wash them because sometimes they have grit left on them as well. So after you wash those, I put them in my pot with water. Now this is something that typically a lot of people do the night before. You put them in water and you let them soak overnight. But usually I forget to do that. So what I do is put on my heat, probably about medium-high, and just let them come to a boil. And then I will rinse them off, and we will go ahead and season them and let them cook on low for a few hours to make them nicely seasoned pinto beans. Now while our beans are finishing cooking, we're going to make buttermilk cornbread. Now there are lots of different types of cornbread, and people have their favorites. Some people use egg in theirs and some people don't. Some people use buttermilk, some use oil and water even. But today we'll be making buttermilk cornbread. So the first thing that we will do, if you don't have buttermilk, which I rarely do because I don't like it, I don't like to drink it, only to cook with it, we need 1.5 cups. So you can make buttermilk with just regular milk and lemon juice. You can even use vinegar in a pinch. You just need an acid to react with the milk. So for 1.5 cups, you're going to put 1.5 tablespoons of lemon juice, and then pour your milk in to reach 1.5 cups. So you don't want to put a whole 1.5 cups of milk because you had a little bit of liquid from the lemon juice that took that up, and it will take your ratio off. Basically, it is 1 tablespoon of lemon juice to 1 cup of milk. So we're going to set that aside and let that curdle just a little bit. So what you need, you can do this in your mixer, but it's so easy to mix up. I typically just use a bowl. You preheat your oven to 425. You need a little bit higher heat for cornbread. You want to make it nice and crispy. So what we'll do is take our pan. While we mix up our cornbread, we will take vegetable oil, and we're going to pour it on the bottom of our pan. We're going to stick this in the oven and let that oil get nice and hot. That will crisp up the bottom of our cornbread because I like a nice little crispy finish on it. So what you need is 1 cup of cornmeal, regular white cornmeal. You can use many different types there too, but you don't want self-rising because we're going to add our baking soda and our baking powder and salt to this. So 1 cup of cornmeal, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/8 cup of granulated sugar. This is 1 tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And so we're going to dump that in. And I'm going to grab one of my spatulas, and we're just going to mix our dry ingredients together. So you will need 1 egg for this, and typically it's a good idea to go ahead and crack your egg and let it sit to room temperature when you're baking things. And so that's what I did, and then I just whipped it up because it mixes better if you already have it pre-whipped. We'll add that to our dry ingredients. Stir it around just a little bit. It's definitely not enough liquid to do anything with those dry ingredients, but we'll mix it in just a bit. And then we're going to take, you can see around the edges where the milk has started to curdle just a little bit. And so we know it's going to have a flavor like buttermilk because it has that acidic flavor of the lemon in it. So we add our 1.5 cups of buttermilk. We'll mix that up. And again, cornbread is such a super simple food to make, and a comfort food really. A lot of people in the South, and maybe other parts of the country, will eat this cornbread and milk. Just a piece of cornbread and a glass of milk. And it may sound gross, but it's actually very good. Make sure it's well incorporated. Sometimes you can leave a little bit of dry ingredients on the bottom of your bowl, so you want to make sure that you have all of that pulled up and mixed into your wet ingredients. And so now, that heat made our oil cover the bottom of our pan, and it's nice. You can feel the heat coming off of it. It's nice and warm. That will again help to crisp up the bottom of our cornbread. We'll pour this in our pan. You can actually hear it sizzle a little bit when you put it in there. Scrape that out. And I will move this over here where I can see a little bit better. Now don't worry about this part. You will see the oil forming along the edges and coming up over the edge of your cornbread. But that will just keep not only your cornbread from sticking to your pan, but it also will bake into your cornbread just a little bit and make it have a really nice flavor. So we're going to put this in our oven. You're going to bake that at 425 for about 20 minutes. It depends on the heat of your oven. You can do that for 20 to 30 minutes. I usually set mine for 20 and then check it. And I usually do this right about 30-40 minutes before my beans are completed cooking, so that everything comes off at the same time and it's a nice hot meal. Now our pinto beans have started boiling. And you see the skin on them has begun to dimple a little bit and to wrinkle. So it is time. I'm going to turn the heat down to about low medium, and I'm going to dump these back into the colander that I have set up over the sink, and we're going to wash this water off. Now I'm going to refill our pan with a lukewarm water. And for this amount of beans, I'm starting off with about 8 cups of water. Because as your beans cook, they do expand, and we certainly don't want them to scorch on the bottom or to burn against the bottom of the pan. So you like to have probably double the amount of water to your ratio of beans that are in your pan. You see they're still steaming. We're going to pour those back into our pan, into our pot. And now we will season them and just let them slow cook for probably a couple of hours. Then we will check the progress. So I like to add fresh ground black pepper. Love the flavor of fresh ground black pepper. And this is a half a tablespoon of salt and a half a tablespoon of chili powder. Not chili seasoning, but chili powder. And I like these two flavors. They work together well with pinto beans, as well as for the other things, the other recipes that I make with the pinto beans. I will save them, as I said, freeze them, and use them in tacos or to make refried beans or in various chilies. Anyway, you just add your seasoning. And if you're watching your salt, if you're on a low sodium diet, you can definitely use the no salt brand. It adds great flavor to it. Stir that in a little bit. And then I add garlic, a garlic flavor of some sort. This is a garlic paste that I made. What I do at the end of the garlic growing season, I grow my own garlic and I make pickles with them, with the garlic bulbs. But if I have garlic left over, and I typically do, I will boil them in oil, a nice extra virgin olive oil. You can also use a vegetable oil or canola oil. But I will boil that and then mash the garlic, drain the oil off and use that oil to cook with, and then mash the leftover garlic, and this is what you end up with. It is a little bit of an oil infused garlic paste. So this is a half a tablespoon of garlic paste. And again, if you don't have that, no worries. You can use minced garlic. I would say it's probably about the same potency as that. So about a half a tablespoon of this. And then this, you can use garlic salt as well if you would prefer. Instead of using salt and garlic, you can use a whole tablespoon of garlic salt. And then just add to, as you cook your beans and you kind of taste them, see how the flavor is shaping up, and add whatever spices, whatever seasonings that you would like. Have fun with it. So our pinto beans have been cooking for about 2.5 hours. I turned them down to a little bit of a lower heat about 1.5 hours in, and as you see, they are bubbling very nicely. And all that water that we had in there that seemed like way too much water has really cooked down and cooked into the pinto beans. So I'm going to grab a spoon and test to see if they're done, as well as to test for flavoring. So if you blow on them, you see the skin cracks when you blow. That's an indication that they are cooked well enough. And they are. They're seasoned perfectly. They don't need any more salt. What we put in there was just enough. You might add a little bit more spice to them if you like to turn up the heat. Some add a little bit of onion, some add a little bit of jalapeno pepper, and just let the juice out of that jalapeno pepper to add a little bit of kick to them. But I like them just like this. So we have our beans finished, and I have our cornbread. As you see, I do like it to be very crunchy. And so some people say that's a little bit dried out, but I like it this way because I usually eat it with the beans, with the juice that's on the beans soaks into that cornbread. And if it's too undone, not crunchy enough, then that cornbread has a tendency to be a little bit too soggy for my liking. Or if you eat it with milk. So I'm going to grab a bowl, and this is how I typically serve it. Take a piece of cornbread, and then I'm going to grab a ladle and open it up so you get the inside softness of that cornbread. Ladle some beans on, and I like a little bit more juice. Grab another spoon. You see it's smoking. It's nice and hot. Perfect. A delicious meal for your family. You can add mashed potatoes, maybe roast a pork loin, or eat this with a beef roast There are lots of different things that you can serve with this, or just eat it just like this by itself.